Hello, everybody. It's Monday. It's favorite time of the week for many of us. Now it's Monday. I've got to figure out the cameras. Favorite time of the week. Sorry, I've got the audio working. I'm going to bring in my two guests and figure out how this all works. I don't know. I haven't done this in a while, so this is weird. Hang on a second. I've got to blow us all up. Bear with me while I juggle. Ivan, CTO, how are you guys doing today?
All good. Fantastic. Good to be back.
It's great. Yeah. Mondays, I said before the show that I always learn something on these Mondays. Love it.
Awesome. Let me try. There we are. Fixed it. That's always impressive. The technology works. Now we're here with two brilliant technologists. So we have a big agenda to go to everybody. Let's, of course, as usual, not waste any time. Let me make sure I get everything working here. I am visible. So what are we going to talk about today? Well, first of all, we're going to talk about Bitcoin's illiquid supply and how it's skyrocketing. And that explains maybe the price action, not only all the good news, but also poor sentiment, lack of volume, lack of activity, and the price is still going up. So I think that could be a big part of it. We'll also look at some Ethereum network staking surging, what that all means. We'll look at a little Bitcoin dominance, a little ETH dominance as well for the first time. And we'll talk about TradFi, what that means. Could it really propel the new wave of crypto adoption? IMF, of course, was a big stunner last Friday. And then there's so much gloom and doom out there. Everybody's saying the world's going to end, recession's coming. And what does that actually mean for markets, for crypto? Could Bitcoin split off and go its own way? We'll see. And right now it's showing a lot of strength. And we'll also touch on some of the global macro geopolitics stuff that's happening out there. So if you guys are ready to roll, ready to jump in?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
No coffee today, Ivan?
Well, I have my sparkling water. It's so hot. It's crazy. We're getting cooked here in Sweden. It's north, yeah, but you wouldn't imagine. It's super hot.
So over 30 Celsius up there?
Around there, especially in the sun.
Good. Okay, before we jump in, remember, everybody, please subscribe to the channels. The links are below. CTO Larson, Ivan on Tech, if you want to know what's going on in the cryptoverse. So the first slide I'm going to pop up today is this guy, and we're going to talk about exactly, what I refer to as kind of hardness. Why Bitcoin is so hard. The Bitcoin illiquid supply hit an all-time high. Hodlers continue to accumulate, particularly the 1,000+ whales since February of this year. There is a lot less being held on exchanges. There's a lot less being sold on exchanges. The supply is super thin. The market cap is, $500 billion? And the pace of hardness is going up like crazy. Now, the big thing I want to point out about this chart, and I want to pick your brains on, because I was stunned to see this. Normally, when we go into a halving cycle, the supply is increasing. But for the first time ever in the history of Bitcoin, it's going down. So does that mean that this time it could be different, especially with the players like BlackRock, Fidelity, Deutsche Bank, Credit Agricole, Citadel, and who knows who, China, everybody coming in? What does this all mean for the actual space? How do you guys view the world today?
Yeah, I can start on this one. I think that a big factor to this is the fact that centralized exchanges have lost so much credibility during the last year that no one really wants to hold any kind of meaningful money there. So it's natural that people learn about multisig. Just in my audience, we discussed a lot about multisig, how to set it up, how to take control of your funds and do self-custody. And there are many different solutions now that make it easier, or at least easier. Not fully easy because it's still your own responsibility, but at least easier. For example, you have these wallets where you don't need to write down the seed phrase. You just have a physical card where you tap it to your phone and the key is transferred to that card, and you can make different backups. So your basically private key instead of a seed phrase isn't the card. I find that brilliant for the average Joe to get started and get into this self-custody way of thinking. It just continues. We have Voyager, we had FTX, you all of course know about that, but it has really harmed the psyche of the average Bitcoin holder and really taught us the lesson: never put money on exchange. And it feels, I can just judge by myself myself. I don't trust any exchange. It feels super risky to have anything there, and that's probably reflected in the chart, because at this point it normally goes up because people start trading, start selling, start maybe exiting the market, which we don't see right now.
Yeah. One of the things that people are concerned about, and this is a fear that people have, I think, in a false manner, is if there is nothing on exchanges and everything is in people's hard wallets, there could be price suppression because there's no activity. But what do you guys think of that, CTO? Is that a concern, or Ivan, for you?
Yeah. First of all, I think exactly like Ivan said here. I see in my community also, I mean, most people were affected in one way or another, either by FTX or Voyager or BlockFi or Celsius or something. All the shenanigan that went on last year, most people were affected one way or another. And now then, where the only ones that's left, which is basically Coinbase and Binance, okay, now they're under fire also. Then, of course, any sane individual who maybe didn't even think about this before just thought it was good to have the money on exchanges because you can have stop loss in place. They don't want to have that anymore. So everyone wants to withdraw their money. They just put it in on the exchange, do the trade, withdraw it again, and so on and so forth. And of course, on average, that will lead to a lot less money visible on exchanges. That doesn't necessarily mean that those people can't trade anymore. But people are also lazy. And I'm just looking at my own behavior. If I have the money on the exchange, it's much easier to, put in a sell order or a stop loss or something. If it's like on a hardware wallet, or you have to go and, get it somewhere even, it's like, I forget about it. I'm not going to, do any transaction. I just wait for tomorrow. So I do think it leads to a reduction of supply, absolutely, but maybe not all of it, but maybe 50%, something.
And also, just to add to that, I think we've got a critical mass of people really believing in crypto in ways they didn't do in the past. Because I think many people who were in the last bull market, they saw crypto more as trading, making some money, getting into this ICOs and all of that, and then exiting. They always thought, I'm always going to exit. I'm just here temporarily, make some money, and I'm going to exit. But I think the last year, maybe 1.5 years, with the banking problems, with inflation problems, also, like you, James, talk about the zombie virus situation, which made everyone understand that the government doesn't really know what they're doing, maybe not always. I think it just made way more people convinced, and way more people just hodl Bitcoin forever. Really forever. This is the insurance policy. And while the hardcore believers have always said that it's like this meme with Morpheus where Neo says, you mean that soon I can sell Bitcoin for millions? And Morpheus answers, no, Neo, when you're ready, you will not sell Bitcoin. You will not have to sell Bitcoin. I think more and more people are starting to get that in ways that I haven't seen in the past, at least, and that we're holding Bitcoin for the sake of holding it forever, not because we're going to trade back and forth. I think that's a big factor as well.
That's so true. And in fact, if you go back to, say, January 2020, people, the average person didn't know about money printing or debasement, inflation, all that type of stuff. Now, when they see the Fed, printing 2/3 of $1 trillion in 4 or 5 days, that basically means 11% debasement over time. It's crazy. And everybody's now attuned to it. It's like, okay, I'm buying less at the store. Okay, my coffee is now more expensive. An apple now costs $2 instead of 80 cents, like it used to a couple of years ago. It's biting everybody. So people are now looking for those hard assets. And I think...
And can you just explain one thing so it's crystal clear? Because I see in my community, a lot of people are confused about this. So why does this matter? Why does it matter how much coins are available on exchanges? Well, it matters because market cap doesn't mean how much money is put in or how much money can be taken out. Not at all. It's just last traded price times the circulating supply. So if money comes into the ecosystem, say that BlackRock or someone, starts buying, they put in a certain amount of money, a certain amount of dollars. that's not enough to predict what the price will be after that. So to understand what the price will be after that, you have to look at how much is available for sale and at which prices. And if there's fewer coins available for sale, they have to start buying at higher and higher prices.
Yep.
While if there's more coins available for sale, maybe price doesn't move at all. Maybe they put in $1 billion, price doesn't move. But if there's very few coins available, if they put in $1 billion, maybe price goes up 50%, or maybe it goes doubles, or you can't know that without knowing how much is available for sale. Just so that no one misses this point, because it's critical, and that's why James' chart here is so relevant.
Well, I spent a lot of time as well kind of mapping out what I call the multiplier when money comes in to the market, what that impact that has on price. And I was able to pinpoint exactly when Tesla was buying, when they spent $1.5 billion. And that took the price of Bitcoin from 30K to 42K, literally in a very short window of time. And that gives you a 21x multiplier. So if and that's only $1 billion, $1.5 billion. I know it sounds like a lot of money, but in today's world, billions are the new million and trillions are billion, which is kind of a weird thing to say. Okay, let's move on. Let's talk about the other concern. We've got a lot of concerns about Bitcoin out there. Let's talk about Bitcoin dominance. People are worried that what's going to happen here. Let me pop this up. I'm really bad at juggling here. But the Bitcoin dominance, I used to have this thing called the floor and the roof. We broke through the roof. It kind of came off about 51.5%. My original roof was about 50%. So we're like at 1.5% over. Now, at the same time, we're seeing a little bit of strength kind of trickle into things like Ethereum. So are you guys concerned about Bitcoin dominance, or does it matter, or how do you see it as you guys go forward?
Yeah, if you zoom out, a bit there on the chart, and I know that I cannot share my screen because it's going to be robot voice. But zooming out on the Bitcoin dominance chart, you see that there is quite a lot of resistance at approximately 58%. I mean, that would be my expectation that in the coming weeks, maybe months, we go there to 58%, and then probably we will have some kind of altcoin run where the dominance goes down. Also, I covered on my channel this morning that in the last cycle, we did have a mid accumulation, like during this accumulation time, which we are in right now, where Bitcoin is sideways and not really going to all-time highs. So in the last cycle in 2019, if you look at total 3, basically all market cap of all coins without Bitcoin and ETH, so we had a massive run, like in the middle of it. So if the cycles are really rhyming, it wouldn't surprise me that Bitcoin pumps all the way to 58%, then takes a breather there, where Bitcoin dominance pumps to 58, takes a breather, and then we see the altcoins return.
Yeah. Now this time, one of the challenges.
Should I try to share my screen?
Please do.
Should we test it? See if they fixed the bug.
Hopefully.
And you see
No, they haven't.
Oh no.
Darn.
Okay, then we give up on that.
Is. But anyway, the point is, we could. Sorry about that. We got to figure out how to do this. I did find a workaround hack where you turn your screen into a camera and then you share your camera instead. But
yeah, I can try that. By the way, does this work if I do
that
like
works
this?
perfectly? Yes, correct.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I was showing two things. Number one is the Bitcoin dominance level that I'm looking at, which is here approximately this area of 58, 59, which is previous support here. But then most important, let me see if I can pull this up quickly here, total 3. Looking at the total market cap, yeah, here you can see, if you look on the log chart, in 2019, we did see this pump right here after the initial dump. For this continued for approximately a year, a bit over a year. Then we see also come back in a very, very big move. So can the same thing happen right now, that after the initial dump, which was very severe, that we see something similar? Maybe. If you're following cycles like I do, that's something that we'll look at. And that's my view on the short term. But CTO, I'm also curious to hear your analysis there with the dominance. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree exactly with what you said. I feel that we have a breakout. There is a clear breakout in Bitcoin dominance. So that is a significant event. And there's no resistance here. in that chart that you just showed. The resistance comes higher up, perhaps at 57, 58, up to maybe 62%. So I think it's a dangerous spot for altcoins in comparison to Bitcoin. Doesn't mean that they would go down in US dollar, but from a pure chart perspective, there is a breakout. We're not at resistance yet. Could mean that Bitcoin continues for a while here.
Now, the big question is a lot of this, I don't believe we would have broken through the 50% roof if it wasn't for the SEC causing the sell pressure into some of the top altcoins, Cardano, Matic, Solana, etc. Do you believe we would be up here now if it wasn't for the SEC? And do you think the SEC has been the catalyst for this dominance?
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. For sure, a lot of people got spooked about that. And then at the same time, there is positive momentum around Bitcoin with ETF discussion and so on. So both of those things together, I think, is what caused this, because this hasn't happened in over 2 years that Bitcoin dominance went that high. So I think there's a push for Bitcoin and like a push down for alts in sentiment.
Now, we're seeing some things happen in the market right now. I did notice a huge amount of activity on chain exploding on Near protocol. That's doing very well today. So people are looking at some of the fundamentals of that chain. And that wasn't entangled in all of this SEC stuff as well. The other angle as well that's important to consider, tomorrow is the sell day for Robinhood. I think on the alts, the 27th of June. So maybe, could be wrong, but maybe the sell pressure for at least those top 3 alts could go away by then. What do you guys think? Or do you look at that?
Yeah, that's very interesting. So basically, tomorrow, Robinhood will sell all the coins for the retail clients.
If you have transferred it or sold it yourself or flipped it into something else.
And what's the biggest buy? Isn't it like SHIB that all the retail that's how it was in crypto.com, I remember. Maybe SHIB is going to get obliterated. Do you know which coins are?
SHIB is definitely a very big bag. I think Matic is the second biggest bag. Cardano is the third biggest bag. And then there's some Solana too. But the question is, SHIB is not in the spotlight of the SEC. So there's no pressure there.
Yeah, I mean, it's so ridiculous. If you do some useless meme, you're good. If you try to do something useful where it's actually some kind of dividend, some kind of use case, which normally is connected to some kind of economic activity and so on and so forth, but you cannot even have a roadmap because then you're a security. So I find it ridiculous. But yeah, like you say, guys, I mean, probably it's a big factor, especially when it comes to institutions that they see a red flag with all of these coins that are mentioned in the lawsuits, including Solana, by the way. Let's see how that turns out. And there is a clear difference now where you have SEC non-mentioned coins and SEC mentioned coins. I think that can disappear quite quickly in case we do see some action against Gary being taken by lawmakers. I haven't heard anything since they proposed the bill, but that would be definitely a good development. If he gets replaced, maybe we'll have to wait until election.
Yeah, that might take a long time. But the good thing is, I think he's been smacked in the face a few times by the resistance of the community. Lawsuits, like to defend lawsuits from Coinbase with huge treasuries and Binance, pretty difficult. Let's switch gears for a second. Let's look at this one. And I rarely talk about ETH dominance, but it is turning up. And typically ETH dominance has been average of 18% in July 2021. And now it's just under 20%. Do you guys look at ETH dominance at all out there? And what do you think where we are?
I can share my screen here. So this is something that I look all the time on Morales Money. So this is a table of all coins on ETH ranked by net volume. So net volume is basically taking all the buy orders on DEXs minus all the sell orders, and you get a net. So you get an idea of how much money is flowing into which assets. So when you look on the monthly scale, you see that it's all of this wrapped ETHs that money is flowing into, which means that people really want yield. To get yield, you buy one of these wrapped ETHs, which in turn puts buy pressure on real ETH, because this is like a proxy into staked ETH. And this is like that on any time frame. You can go to today, for example, and you're going to see a similar picture where it's still liquid staked ETH on STETH or wrapped staked ETH or Rocket ETH, Coinbase ETH. It's always this ETH coins that are just dominating the on-chain net flows of capital, and that of course puts at the end of the day puts a buy pressure on real ETH, because this is proxy for staked ETH, and it really shows this use case of being a treasury. This is internet treasury, where you get yield, and this is as risk-free as possible as you can get.
Exactly. It's fascinating. In fact, one of the visions or hopes that maybe I have is the fact that perhaps, and here we are, this is the staking surge of ETH, weekly staked ETH, and you can see from this chart going back to 2021 how it has exploded. Now, the question is, how does that impact the ETH price? Like you've just covered that, Ivan. And also, what does this mean for the future? Is this a new DeFi summer? And that's, I know I'm maybe jumping a bit too far ahead here, but the activity is special. CTO, I see you laughing.
There's something super interesting with the Ethereum chart here. And it's a bit I can show it, but if any of you can pull up any ETH BTC chart, I can take you through it.
Yes.
So
now, hold on. Bear with me.
Or I can show it, but then I have to be quiet.
Well, let me see. Here we go. I will share my screen. You seeing that?
So we zoom out so we see until from basically beginning of 2021.
Okay.
So, yeah. So what this is, if this chart turns up around here, if it does, we don't know that for sure, and then breaks out above 0.085, then this becomes an inverse head and shoulders pattern. We have the left shoulder, which is on the left side of this screen, or left side, where starting from May 2021 until December 2021. And then it's the head from December 2021 to September 2022. And if it turns up here, we're right at the bottom of the right shoulder right now. So if price holds here, or like approximately here, holds above something like 0.06 or 0.058, and then turns up, we're doing the right shoulder. And then if it breaks out from there, that's like one of the most classic bullish pattern, which would have a target all the way up close to Bitcoin's market cap. So that would be huge. And if it does that, we're very close to the bottom on this chart right now, actually. So this is maybe one of the most interesting charts in crypto here.
Yeah. So years ago, I kind of created this little funnel that you see with the red lines, and I was hoping it was going to bounce off this red line support here at 0.064. It didn't. It fell through 0.061, and we know it's going to 0.08 over time, back to where it was here, as you say, the top of kind of the head and shoulders. So it's super, super interesting indeed. We really have to figure out how to fix your
exactly. And then so that could definitely be the case. And then if there comes reasons for that, like Ivan highlight and so on, this could be it.
Yeah, it's interesting. Last Monday on DCA, I did mention the ETH discount at 53%. Well, ETH has gone up 35% in just a week. Remember that conversation? So there is money trickling back in to take advantage of that discount, especially after seeing what happened to the GBTC discount as well going forward. So good news there on where we are with our friend Ethereum dominance. So let's talk about the next topic. Now, a lot of people might be excited about this, and we've heard about it a lot of times, but let's have a look at what people believe is potentially the new ETH of this cycle. And this chart keeps popping up here. And then just from a chartist perspective, obviously, that's the last cycle Ethereum. And this is the current cycle Solana. And the green is where Solana could potentially go. Is this complete nonsense, or do you believe it could have legs? Because right now the problem is there's so much stuff out there for people to invest in, which is sucking up all the liquidity. It's harder than it was back in the old days to just have one coin that pumps, because now there's 23,000 of them. Where do you guys see this going, or is it just hopium? Silence.
I can start.
Yeah.
No, I always don't know. Should I start? Should I not start? Let me start, and then CTO can fill in as well. So, I mean, one thing that is clear is that these charts normally, in my experience, they're more towards hopium than reality. I mean, all the time I see this chart on Bitcoin, like Bitcoin is gonna go to the moon tomorrow. I've seen so many of them, and although they're quite interesting to look at, they rarely play out. But Solana, on a fundamental level, I think it's quite close to ETH in terms of how nice it is to use and feel freedom, because you don't really feel freedom with Bitcoin if you have your Bitcoin in self-custody, because you need centralized exchange to do everything. With ETH, it's I feel that it's still a bit of market inefficiency, where, for example, I know something that the overall market doesn't know, like BlackRock doesn't know because they're all into Bitcoin, and a lot of the TradFi don't know. They mostly focus on Bitcoin, which is fantastic. But if you actually hold Bitcoin, you quickly realize it feels kind of like a prison. Okay, you hold it, but what can you do with it? You can send it to another address, but everything else requires a third party, and it requires KYC, which is not good for your freedom, for financial freedom. With ETH, it really feels that, wow, I can do anything. I can have ETH, I can buy some derivative of Bitcoin, which is risky, of course, because they can lose peg. But I can go into stable coins, I can go into any other coin, I can use a bridge, and I can actually go to Bitcoin and potentially even come back using the Thor chain bridge, for example. But that's a clear difference between ETH and Bitcoin. ETH is way more freedom. Solana, I feel, is similar to ETH, where you have kind of the same level of things you can do with Solana. The ecosystem is way younger, still has ways to go. But in terms of where ETH was when that chart, where the guy showed the chart, like before ETH exploded to this massive bull run, I feel that Solana has come way further. Now, the market cap of ETH was probably, or actually, I don't know if you compare the market cap of ETH at that bottom to Solana, but Solana is still quite expensive. I mean, it is what is it, a few billion still. Solana right now is at 6 billion. Yeah, but overall, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Solana does something similar, because it's nice to use. It has a moat. Like another thing, it has a moat, which is non-EVM. If you have an EVM chain, like for example Avalanche or Near, where most of their dApps are on or Polygon, it's EVM based chains, which is easy to get adoption for dev adoption with. But the bad thing is that your devs can leave at any time. Solana has a moat. You are dev in Solana, you cannot go anywhere else, and most of them love deving on Solana. So it wouldn't surprise me, but I've been my heart has been broken too many times with this hopium chart, so I'm taking it with a grain of salt, but wouldn't be surprised.
So CTO,
exactly. So I'm more exactly. I'm more cold-hearted here. So I have a very clear picture. I actually have a Solana position that I got in at, what was it, 14.2, something like that. Now it's 16.8. The support on the USD chart is about 14.5. So that one is holding. That's good. But on the Solana to BTC chart, the support at about 5,700 sats has actually broken in the wake of this Bitcoin dominance run up. So it's up in USD, but since USD isn't the real money, right? That's questionable if that's really up or not.
Yeah.
But there's no question about the fact that Solana chart is horrible. Like in Bitcoin, but even in dollar, yes, it pumped a bit. But if you zoom out, it's horrible. That's why when
it's a Matic got destroyed even more. Cardano destroyed
exactly.
So it's a bloodbath.
And I mean that's the big opportunity in crypto, that the moves are much bigger than seems reasonable. If you go back to the top of the bull run and said that Solana price is going to be this or that, no one would believe you. It seems impossible. Like maybe it could go down 10%, maybe 20%, but something like this seems completely impossible. But that is the big opportunity, because maybe just like Ethereum, I mean, Ethereum almost died in a couple of years ago here, when it was basically one ICO project left from, if they had sold also, Ethereum price would have gone to single digit instead of, what was it, $80. It would have gone to $8. And but then it turns around and then it starts going this insane multiples. And that can happen to Solana too, because I'm looking at Solana because I think it, just like Ivan said, it has good development experience. It's good to use. It has a lot of ecosystem. You have a lot of freedom. It's kind of simpler in a way in terms of architecture than layer 2 solutions. And I think it has a lot of going for it. So who knows, maybe it goes even further down, but then it could also turn around and start doing these crazy multiples again. That's the beauty of this market.
And we know how quick alt season can happen and how quick the moves are. So it's kind of like what you guys do up there in Scandinavia. You sit at a lake with a little hole in the ice and you go fishing and you wait the whole day, which could be the whole year or 2 years. Okay, let's talk about one interesting thing that has a lot of people very scared right now. And this is what a lot of buzz around Twitter, talking about Sailor, super smart guy. I learned a lot from him, but it would not surprise me if he turns out to be a villain in Bitcoin's story. See it happen before. When BlackRock fork war happens, so people are always saying it's actually going to happen, that he has a huge incentive to be on the regulatory compliance side of the chain. Now, what they're talking about here is obviously, the impact of BlackRock coming into Bitcoin, buying it all up. My thesis is 78% of it is held by long-term holders right now. It's going to be very difficult for BlackRock to control the chain. But I'd like to pick your minds on what it takes for them to actually unlock that, refork it to something proof of stake, ESG friendly, who knows? But this is a concern for people. I'm wondering what you both think about that. CT, I'll go to you first. Is it a concern? How hard would it be from a technology perspective to fork it? And what impact would it have for us Bitcoin holders?
Yeah, the forks are a very interesting story. I don't know if everyone in the audience was there, but it wasn't that far away that Roger Ver and team actually managed to become the dominant fork. They had so much capital behind, and they were buying up the price up to about 0.5 BTC. So you had to pay 0.5 BTC for 1 BCH. And it kept going up. It went from 0.05 to 0.1 to 0.2, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5. And I was sitting there, I had some friends, we were panicking. Should we sell? But what can we sell to? What is it? Which one is going to be the Bitcoin? And they did this in Asia, and it was a Korean exchange that was the main vehicle to drive up the price. And at late night, a bit hump, right? They pulled the plug. The Koreans, pulled the plug shut down the whole exchange. And then the momentum died. BCH price crashed back again. And the coup, speaking of coup, the coup attempt failed. It didn't become the dominant chain. But it wasn't that far away as people maybe want to, recall. I felt the fear sitting there that, they might actually succeed. And it could go from 0.5 to 0.6 to 0.8 to 0.9 to 1 to 1.1 to 2 and so on. And it felt like it was basically hours away. And then people would have started panicking and they could have succeeded with a coup. So can this happen? Yeah, I guess it can. It feels impossible until it actually does. But I doubt this is the BlackRock game. I'm thinking more that they are, looking at this from maybe price perspective. But they're not going to play nice. People hoping that the institution's going to come in and price is just going to start going up in a straight line up. It's not going to be like that. These are the master manipulators. We're getting into the party then. They will do something. They're going to try to, crash it hard with whatever means they have and then get in and then drive it up. And when everyone is bullish again, they're going to dump. And, these are the professionals coming in. But I'm thinking they will more, play the price game.
What happened with Grayscale is one of the things that the SEC does not like. That's why they never approve their ETF, because accredited investors can buy it on the cheap and then they rain it down on retail, kind of like a meme token or something by whales at a huge kind of premiums, and then the ARB drifts away and the retailers are left holding the bag with 50% discount, which it hit. One of the things that BlackRock did have in their filing is NASDAQ monitoring to make sure there is no market manipulation, but that might just be an under-the-table agreement which they can bypass. Ivan, what do you think of all of this? Fork possible or not? Is it a concern people should have?
I personally am not at all concerned, because let's say that they want to fork and they change Bitcoin to have KYC, for example. It's no longer Bitcoin. And people have Bitcoin for reasons of freedom. And BlackRock wants to mirror that. They want to have a financial product based on that asset, which is Bitcoin. So if they start messing around with it, it's no longer the same. And as CTO said, we've had already an attempt. This Bitcoin Cash attempt, it was quite big. I even think Coinbase supported it. All the miners supported it. It was a massive coordinated fork where all the businesses in crypto supported Bitcoin Cash, and Bitcoin still won because you cannot come together as big business and change the social consensus layer, where we as market participants, we decide with our money what is real Bitcoin. Now the question is, can TradFi just come in and decide it for us? I don't think so, because we create this asset, which is so fantastic and so nice. If they start messing with it, what is stopping us from going somewhere else and continuing with the way Bitcoin was before? So I think it's going to be very difficult for them to change anything. And I agree with CTO. What is the point? You try to make an ETF based on Bitcoin because Bitcoin is interesting and there is institutional demand for Bitcoin. Why mess it up? Because now your ETF is no longer Bitcoin. So I think the social consensus is so strong, and we've already proven it many times. People have forked Bitcoin many times.
Yeah, interesting. CTO, you did say something that was of interest, and that was TradFi, kind of the institutions. They will not be nice. I look at it as maybe the institutions, TradFi, will push the next leg of crypto adoption because they have the resources. They have a truckload of money. In fact, I just looked at the big players that were coming in. They run about $27 trillion worth of AUM. Even if half of 1% of that goes into Bitcoin, it'll put it to literally way north of $100,000. Also, legitimacy will be brought to the space. And they have a lot of folks that sell and push and allocate to different types of funds. So what did you mean when you said the institutions will not be nice?
Exactly. So if we look back at the last year, if we look at the stock market chart, the S&P 500, there's an inverse head and shoulders pattern that has just confirmed the trend has turned up. Inverse head and shoulders patterns happen when big players are buying. They're trying to not affect the price so much. They're buying a little bit and so on, trying to, do it sneakily so people don't notice. But the inverse head and shoulder is a telltale sign that big players have been accumulating for the whole last year. And what have we been fed in the mainstream media? We have been fed doomsday propaganda. The economy is dead, everything is going down, and it's a disaster. Right? That's a takeaway from all the media. While these guys, the institutions, they've been buying this whole time. We can see it in the chart. And if you look at Nasdaq, this famous channel that goes back soon 15 years, it hasn't been broken. It wasn't broken during COVID. It hasn't been broken now during this recession. And in fact, these were the buying opportunities. And I think, James, you have been very vocal about that, for example, with Tesla and so on. These were the buying opportunities. And that's what the institutions have done while they go on CNBC and talk about how bad everything is and how you should sell your stocks and how you should, give them your stocks at lower priprices so
they can fill their bags.
More. Yeah. And they're going to do the same here with crypto. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting. So we got a couple more items to go to, and then we've got some very interesting questions from the audience. So one of the other key topics right now, IMF, I have a small little slide on that. I don't need to show it, but the IMF did flip all of a sudden to crypto as another potential catalyst that people didn't see coming. The IMF basically came out and said words to the effect of, they don't believe in crypto bans anymore. A complete crypto ban on assets would be ineffective in the long run. The IMF has clashed with El Salvador in the past, and all of a sudden, let's all be nice now and play nice in the sandbox. Well, I'm trying to figure out why the IMF flipped so fast from being so anti-crypto. I mean, they give money to Argentina, and they say, you can only have this money if you basically ban and make crypto impossible in your country. And we know that the IMF is heavily controlled by the Treasury in the United States. They are the people pulling the strings. So what is this about? Is this like, okay, we are IMF and crypto's now okay because CBDCs are coming, or what is the angle? I can't.
BlackRock called. It's like this meme with Elizabeth Warren and Gary, where Elizabeth Warren says, chill, take it easy with crypto rules. Like BlackRock wants to buy. I don't know what else to say. It's so weird, but the timing is very perfect. BlackRock gets in, SEC is quiet, IMF thumbs up, fantastic. Now we just need ESG marking on Bitcoin. That would be the final thing.
So the game is completely rigged.
I don't know. It seems like that. What do you guys think?
Actually, I have a super big question to the two of you. Would it be possible to solve the ESG problem for Bitcoin by having something like, say, BlackRock can only buy ESG certified Bitcoin that have been mined in some US facility where it's 100% renewable or something like that? Is that even possible? Could they solve it like that, or will that not be enough volumes?
Well, for example, you have
high price
carbon-free Bitcoin minted by Wolf Mining, TeraWolf, but then they'll say, well, nuclear is not ESG or whatever. The whole ESG thing is BS anyway. When you see Philip Morris ahead of companies like Tesla, is just ridiculous. It's all fixed. But
in Europe, they've solved that by sorry, I used the wrong word. They're not calling it ESG anymore. They're calling it fossil free, so that it includes the nuclear energy as well.
But I thought they shut them down in Germany and many other places, the nuclear.
Oh yeah, but now they need to open them back up. And then the way that that's solved on the political agenda is that it's no longer called ESG or renewable, it's called fossil free. Then there is no doubt.
Yeah. Well, we'll see where it all goes, but that could be interesting. But again, I think, there was a guy called O'Reilly or something. He spoke about blood coins, like blood diamonds. He wants to only buy virgin, pure, carbon-free Bitcoin. And of course, you can't label this Bitcoin as, minted this way and the other one's minted this way and track it. It's kind of ridiculous. Theoretically possible, but I think it's a silly situation. Let's talk about one perspective you guys have now regarding whether or not we're going into a desperate period. Warren Buffett, he's a guy who's always been very bullish, like his entire life, on the U.S. economy. And he comes out for the first time ever saying, the incredible period is coming to an end. Get used to making less. Focus on investing in recession-resistant assets, etc. And I've had that same theory for the longest time. If you've listened to my channel, I talked about over the last year, get into recession-proof stocks, things that can weather the storm. There's a lot of stuff as well. Like I was watching 6 weeks ago, Swedish retail numbers, literally making the biggest collapse ever in the history of the world. 2 or 3 weeks later, Germany followed. Now the US is following. Where do you guys see the macro going? How bad is Europe right now? What effect will this have on the markets? Because my perspective is also from studying history of the markets going back to 1927. By the time the government says we're in a recession, we're already coming out of it, first of all. And markets are forward-looking. So it doesn't necessarily impact the markets. How do you guys see this? And then when you look at risk assets compared to Bitcoin and crypto, if risk assets tank 20%, could it bring the crypto market down?
Who should start? I can start.
You can start. Yeah.
Are things
bad
in Sweden?
Speaking about Sweden, the central bank and politicians are bullish that we're gonna start decreasing interest rate towards the end of the year, or at least the media and the news. And my view on it is that we have a ticking bomb here because people have savings. It's very tough, mortgage has 5x or something. It's super tough. Food has increased, but still the real estate market is doing okay. We don't see a lot of people losing their jobs, so there's still economy goes round, probably because everyone is living on savings, probably because some people also have set interest rates, which will very soon. So this year, 70% of Swedish mortgage rates will go from fixed to variable. And that's when everyone is going to feel that very nice 5x increase. And let's see what's going to happen. But one theory I've heard, which is quite interesting, is that probably this is going to be a non-recession recession, which means that our assets are obliterated. But there's so much money in the system that maybe the average Joe doesn't lose their job, that because just there's such an abundance of capital printed that maybe we can get out of it without a hard landing, and that only us who are with assets feel the pain. That at least how it seems to be right now, but things can change so quickly, and maybe we're gonna wake up here in Q4 and it's gonna be a hard landing. But right now anyway, it feels that it is this non-recession recession where everyone with assets is wrecked, and if you live paycheck to paycheck and you don't have real estate, you don't have a mortgage, you probably haven't noticed a lot. Maybe food prices is where your impact ends.
Interesting.
Yeah, definitely. So if taking like our small, like symbolic country here as example, I think the National Bank is in a tricky situation. As Ivan said, the biggest concern is probably the property market, exactly for those reasons. And that causes worry about, the Swedish crown. So there's a lot of pressure on that. The Swedish crown starts dropping. What is the central bank's only defense? They could increase the target rate to kind of protect the crown. But if they do that, if the interest rate goes up, what happens with the property market then? Well, it gets even more challenged, right? Because if interest rates go up, the mortgages get even more expensive and the property market gets even more challenged. So it's kind of in a tricky situation. I think a lot of the worries is exactly about the property market, which is both affects many individuals because most people own a property in Sweden, most people with jobs, and also the commercial property market. So there is a lot of these macro worries. I'm not an expert in it. I'm basically following it, trying to understand it as best I can. But what's interesting is those things I said before. Looking at Nasdaq, technology hasn't cared. Technology hasn't cared about COVID. Technology didn't care about this whole year recession. It stayed in the same channel as it's done for almost 15 years. And it seems like we're still buying new phones. We're still wanting to have electric cars or whatever the latest technology is. So I'm happy to be in the technology space where cryptocurrencies, tech stocks, and so on seem to be doing well through all these national economic challenges that I can only begin to understand. And yeah, I'm happy I'm not in it.
The other big factor that people probably don't notice behind the scenes, but QE is already happening once again. Money printing is happening. It's in a little bit of a covert way, but tons of money is going to trickle back into the system, which is very positive for risk assets. Also, studying history, when the first 6 months of the stock market goes up by more than 10%, there's an 82% chance that the next 6 months are very positive too, going up by another 8%. And that's just history. So from that perspective, risk assets, QE is happening. Rates have paused. They might do one little more and once they start cutting, the problem is the effect of the cut. If they say, okay, we've got to cut now because the poop has really hit the fan and the recession is really bad, that scares markets and that can bring markets down. If say, we're going to cut rates because our deficits are through the roof and that's a different situation. So the question is hard landing, soft landing, recession is coming. No ifs, ands, or buts. One final question before we open it to questions. Ivan, I know you are a geopolitical expert, especially with all things Belarus.
Exactly.
Like 24 hours from Friday night here to Saturday morning, I was obsessed with watching the live feed and how Twitter was telling you what was happening in the world. And then mainstream media would come out with news 6 hours later after everybody knows exactly what's going on. It was a weird time of life. what was that about with the Wagner Group, Putin, the Belarus relationship? Can you summarize for the audience the impact of that and how
I can
Bitcoin
speak.
actually was very strong during this moment?
I can speak for hours about this, but I think if we just look at the summary, what has happened is that Wagner Group, which was started by the Russian government, and the start of Wagner Group was all about to clean up all of these warlords in eastern Ukraine. Because when Russia took over eastern Ukraine, there were a lot of warlords within that area who thought that they would be appreciated, because they are like fighting for Russia. But you see, Russian government doesn't like that because it's a competition. They're getting influence there. So Wagner was from the beginning, and this was 7 years ago or so, was created to get rid of them so that there is no one becoming some kind of local superstar there. And since then, they've been operating across the world, in Africa, in all kinds of countries, doing different tasks for the Russian government where you don't have to be fully official, because if you use the normal army, it's official, and you have to have some kind of accountability. With Wagner, it's not official. But the biggest problem they have created with that is that Russia does not have a single army. Everyone is trying to do their own army. You have Wagner, number one. You have in Chechnya, another army, because Chechnya is like a state in Russia, but they're not really following the rules, and they have like their special conditions.
They're tough as hell, I heard.
But they're also called the TikTok warriors as well, because they create all of these TikTok videos where they're super tough, but they don't really fight too much in the war, but they do create TikToks. But anyway, so what has happened is that lately, I think Wagner and Prigozhin, who is the leader of Wagner, kind of saw that his fate is kind of like one of these Ukrainian warlords which was 7 years ago. That yes, he's become a superstar of the war. He's been quite successful fighting for Russia, but now he himself is getting quite some traction. He's becoming a local superstar, and I think he started to understand, man, my time is running out. I really need to make a move and to ensure that it's impossible to just remove me. And there are all kinds of opinions. Listen, you ask someone, there's going to be opinions left. I'm telling you my version of the story. So he started then to make moves. He started with loud videos where he said, yeah, Russian army is so bad, leadership is so bad, trying to really make a name for himself and really get the people behind me, so he's too big to destroy. And lately it has turned into this coup attempt, which funnily enough got resolved by Belarusian dictator Lukashenko, who is the master of deal making in terms of international policy. I mean, if anyone, people praise Putin a lot, but if anyone, Lukashenko should get the gold medal for resolving this. And listen, who knows what's going to happen if they had a deal all along to make this theater. Some people say that, okay, now they're super close to Kiev because Belarus is close to Kiev. Yeah. Maybe that's a way of moving them around. But I don't think so. I think that Russia is quite weak. And that's a view that people don't really have in the West a lot. And, we like crypto, but people who like crypto, they also think that in general, like we're generalizing as hell now. But many people who like crypto, they think that, Russia is so strong, Putin's so strong. I don't think so. I think it's super weak, especially now where basically Lukashenko was needed to figure it out. And now there is a joke as well in Russia where, in case NATO attacks, we better call Lukashenko to fix the problem. So let's see, guys. Let's see. But it's a very hot topic. And also, I mean, it's funny how inflamed topic this is in the US, because actually this Russia-Ukraine thing is a highly political American topic as well. It's so, people are really up in arms and they want to fight for their opinion here. So I don't want to get too much into these tensions. I'm just telling you my story. But my conclusion anyway is that Russia is super weak, especially now what we've seen, that they cannot even stop an insurgence. It's crazy. Let's see what's going on. It's funny.
I'm a longtime Gary Kasparov fan and I follow him on Twitter.
Oh, yeah.
He is very good.
Then we are on the same page. We're on the same page.
He said that Russia has been dead for a long time on Friday. He said, it's like a house of cards ready to topple down. Okay, with that, geopolitical news. But again, what stunned me, and as CTO, I don't know if you noticed this too, but during all of this mayhem over that 24-hour period, Bitcoin went up. It was really strong. So is that a flight to safety? Did Prigozhin get some Bitcoin?
It's very interesting because to Belarus? I mean, as you point out, many times when there's geopolitical worries, everything tanks. All stocks, everything, risk on assets tank because there's worry. and it didn't. Yeah, it went up. And I saw someone at the very top of the chat who said that we were all bearish last week. We were not.
No.
I had hang up here checked at 6:11 on the previous episode on DCA last week. I said I feel actually bullish here. I have not changed my mind. That's my conclusion on this one, as per the YouTube transcript. So I think we were all bullish last week, and we got lucky this time again.
And again, just to recap as well, everything has been thrown at Bitcoin this year. It's been fascinating to watch. The banking crisis, the SET attacks on Coinbase, etc., etc. The sentiment is in the toilet, but the price keeps going up. Can you imagine when the sentiment turns positive and the money starts flowing in? Can you imagine what the price will do? So for us to be so strong after everything that's happened in the first 6 months of this year, that is a reason to be extremely bullish and extremely excited. What do you guys think of that? And then we'll go to some questions.
Our
absolutely
answer.
Absolutely. Imagine if the main institutions actually, if they have accumulated, if they're done accumulating and they want to pump this instead, and all these people who are now trying to say that it's a bad and it's scam, it's only criminals and we don't need it and should be banned and so on. Imagine if they have finished buying and they are out and pumping it instead.
Yeah, it's cool.
It's the solution to world peace and everyone's problems.
Exactly. Let's bang through a couple of quick questions here and then we'll let you guys go. Thank you so much for coming on. Don't forget to subscribe to their channels. Let me pop this up if I can. Well, the links are below, everybody. CT Lesson, probably everybody here is already subscribed to you both. But some of the quick questions, a big thank you to the moderators in the chat too for being there. T&D, Tesla, and K8, etc. MT says, I love this crew. So people are sharing love with you both, guys. The fifth wave has an interesting question too, because I have analyzed the actual Asian volume. One of the concerns in the SEC attack was US doesn't even matter. If the US left the crypto market altogether, it would not impact crypto. It would not be the death of crypto. US is 4% of the population and only makes up about 14 to 17% of the actual trading volume. But the fifth wave said, is the trading volume from Asia really 80%? Since Binance and others have excessive wash trading. Have you guys looked into the wash trading? There's one of the accusations in the SEC is that CZ trades against his customers. That's something that the FTX SBF guy did as well. Very evil thing to do. What do you guys think?
It wouldn't surprise me. We have no transparency, so they can show whatever numbers they want. But I don't think it matters a lot because the US institutions will still trade. I think Ron Paul said it in one of his interviews where crypto is not the only market where it's very restricted in the US. I think he had some examples with some derivatives which are only available in the UK and Europe and other places. And US institutions, they still trade via entities in Europe. So let's say everything is banned in the US, US institutions are still going to be in crypto because obviously you don't want to miss out. You can set up an entity in Singapore or Dubai, you can transfer money, you can still trade. So retail, unfortunately, is going to be shut off, but institutions, I don't think so. And that's, I guess, most of the capital. So we're going to still keep most of the economic activity.
So CTO, do you think?
Yeah, but I still think that US matters a lot. US matters a lot because it's a symbol. We all look up to you guys in the US, and what's happening in Silicon Valley, what's happening in New York. It does feel like it's the much of the thought leadership is still happening in the US. And if US would, for example, completely ban crypto or step out of crypto or something, that would be a disaster, even if the trading doesn't happen there, because a lot of other countries, including Sweden and many countries in Asia, would look to the US and say that, but they did like this, maybe we should also, and so on and so forth. So I think US is important, and I am confident that the US will come out of this with a reasonable outcome, because US is also very much pro-freedom, right? It's a pro-innovation. You've had enormous success with Web 2, Silicon Valley, which is driving the whole economy. And there are thought leaders like Elon Musk and so on who would be go on a rampage if US starts banning all these new technologies and so on. I don't think it's going to happen in the end. I think US will stand strong with crypto, and I think all the countries following will take notice of that in the end.
Yeah.
I think so too, by the way. But I think it's important for the US politicians to understand that, listen, crypto will be fine and you don't control it. Because then they will do what you say, CTO, that they will think of it more that, okay, we're not shutting crypto. We're going to be shutting ourselves from crypto. And then no one wants to do that. But if they feel that, okay, we can actually control it, then they may do something not smart. But as long as they know, okay, crypto is so much bigger than the US, and obviously we all want US to be part of the market. I think the likelihood is better that they do something more smart.
And this ties into the IMF, ties into the US Fed, Treasury, etc. For them to flip on crypto is a big movement.
And I have one question for you, James, who are on the ground. With RFK Jr., I see the question here also in the chat, who comes up as at least a contender for the 2024 election, and he has been very vocal pro crypto and pro freedom and against much of the mainstream narrative. Do you think that affects other politicians as well, that they feel they need to borrow a little bit of the things he's doing that seems to be working? Or
first, I think it would be like a blessing to have somebody with a brain like RFK who is objective and does the right thing, doesn't pander to political groups. It would be great to have somebody like that in the office. But the problem is the Democratic Party is controlled by players you do not see. It's all a puppet show. So, and same with the other side of the fence too. There is no way an outsider can come in and win. They will not let it happen. That's the sad thing. But I do think what he is doing is rattling things up, and he's making crypto and freedom and all that type of stuff, truth, freedom of information, very, very important to the voters going forward. And remember, the elections in the United States are decided about what kind of between 4 and 9% of the population do. There are people on the left, people on the right. They will vote their way anyway. It's all about the people in the middle that can go left or right. That's all that matters. And to those people, this time around, crypto does matter. So you have to pander to those people as you go forward. So that's just my take. I could be wrong. I'm not a political scientist by no stretch. Margie K had a question. What happens to GBTC if BlackRock gets approval, up or down? So I'll take this one real quick and see what you guys say. The GBTC discount, if they do get their ETF approval, it's only a matter of time before Grayscale gets it, which means as soon as Gary Gensler, maximum 16 months, 15 months from now, leaves the office, it will be approved too. And that means the discount will go to zero, which means the price of GBTC will go up. What do you guys think?
Definitely. Yeah, I think so too. Agree 100%.
Quick question from Aru Basu. I know you guys want ETFs, but I don't want it. I don't want it for the crypto market. So do you think ETFs, BlackRock, good or bad for the space?
Yeah, I mean, it's inevitable. You have an asset, people want to trade, someone will do an ETF. So it's inevitable. And I don't think it's productive to discuss it's good or it's bad. It's going to happen no matter what. Yep. And the good thing with an ETF based on Bitcoin is that you do have more transparency. It is on chain. With gold, for example, you don't know where they have gold, which vault, this and that. With Bitcoin, I think we're going to have way more transparency just because of the nature of it.
Exactly. And final question. This is an interesting one. This is like a philosophical question. First of all, big thanks from KN as well. And thank you to KN for being in the community. But this is from Steve Swanson. What is the point of holding Bitcoin forever? What is the end game? Honest question. I know the answer to this. What do you guys think? Will you hold Bitcoin forever? And why?
I mean, fiat can trend towards zero. That it has always done. It will probably always do. There will always be an inflation component in fiat, even if it's very low, like 1% or something. It is still positive. Now we feel it maybe more and more. That's why the stock market can actually go up forever. That doesn't mean that those companies become more and more valuable in real term. It just means that fiat becomes less and less valuable every year. And that means that hard assets like gold or the collective amount of companies or Bitcoin can actually go up forever if they don't get replaced by something else. Maybe we don't collect gold anymore. Maybe we collect digital gold, or maybe we don't collect digital gold, Bitcoin anymore. Maybe we collect Ethereum in the future or something else. And that could happen. But I do think that the price of these kind of assets, they can go up forever, absolutely, until they get replaced.
Yeah.
But I mean, the question is, will you hold money forever? Because Bitcoin is money. So yeah, I mean, you need money, you need to hold it. The question is, what kind of money? Because with CBDCs and the way that just in general, all the digital bank accounts and all of that, it's becoming like big tech. You can get deplatformed at any time. Oh, you don't follow terms and conditions of this government today? Too bad, it's banned. Maybe you're gonna get your account back, or maybe not. Maybe it's gonna take 6 months or maybe longer. And by the way, next year the terms and conditions are different because now the mainstream media has switched the narrative. So now you can say this thing, but now you cannot say that thing. I think in general, who wants that? It's very nice to have money outside of the system. And we mentioned the Russia coup. So with Prigozhin, his Wagner group, they seized 48 million bucks from a cardboard box. I was thinking he should have Bitcoin instead. Now he lost it, and it's an extreme case. But in general, if you're politically active in any country, it's a good thing for you to have a bit of Bitcoin, because who the hell knows? Maybe the mainstream media will twist your position in such a way where you're gonna lose your bank account. I mean, look at what they're trying to do with Robert Kennedy. They are attacking him from all directions. Wouldn't surprise me if they actually freeze the bank account. So nice to have a bit of crypto in all situations.
Exactly. And, I think Michael Saylor puts it very well. It's like when you look at the wealth of generations, typically it's in something like real estate. And do those families that had, say, a city block in New York City in 1850, do they ever sell? No. They just refi. Refi, generate perpetual income, refi. And that's the nature of Bitcoin. It'll become that pristine asset. And I spent, when I started the channel, I knew that one day having one whole coin would be a very special place in this planet. And I've been trying to incentivize people to try and make that a goal to achieve one whole Bitcoin, because, by my numbers, no more than 350 to 400,000 people will ever be able to achieve that level. And that's why it's special. That'd be like your city block on planet Earth, that one whole Bitcoin. And I think that's the message for people. And there will come a time when all of the financial services stabilizes, for example, banks and Fidelity and BlackRock, and you will have your little piece of Bitcoin or self-custody. You'll be able to borrow against it. And then you'll be able to have freedom to do your vacations, etc. But the big message is everything is debasing fast. And the hardest asset that I can find on Earth is Bitcoin. So with that, guys, any closing thoughts for the team here and the community and everybody?
Well, fantastic stream yet again. Thanks a lot for having us here, and we're going to be back next Monday, as always.
Yes, Ivan, and your channel too. So
oh yes.
Dust off that furniture and make sure everything is working. The lighting is working. You're not
exactly.
A big jar anymore. You used to have a big jar or a vase.
I have it. I mean, it's here. I've been checking all the whole stream.
I saw a different cup earlier. I thought it was the glass. Maybe I just saw the top.
Yeah, I had to transfer this. So yeah, I have all kinds of beverage. Yeah.
Awesome. And CTO, any final thoughts from you?
It's a very exciting time. Bitcoin prices, trends back up. We're hitting up against resistance area again. I think this year is going to be very interesting, going into early next year as well. I think we have a good next 12 months ahead of us. And stay for the long haul, guys. Don't get the chopped up too much in the chop. Yeah. Now we're in a choppy price action. It's difficult from a trading perspective. I think it's a very interesting time ahead. Stock market has inverse head and shoulders. The big players have been buying against the narrative we've been fed. That's my takeaway.
One final thought. A lot of people ask me, and I've modeled it out based on history, is we know there's going to be a pre-halving run. Okay, so up to April 14th, 2024, price will go up. After that, the supply shock hits when the issuance is halved. And as long as the demand stays constant, price goes up. The question I get is, how long will that post-halving run go on? Now, if you look at history, you take an average of all the post-halving runs, it takes us to about the September 25th, 2025. How long do you think we could run for?
Exactly. I have actually a question that I thought to ask. When do you think this, if the BlackRock ETF gets approved? Because when that gets approved, they have to get their people in, and they're not going to want to buy the top. They want to buy the bottom. So then price has to go down at some point after the ETF has been approved, I suppose.
Well, that's
and
why, I have a theory that BlackRock, they're smart enough to know that the halving is coming. It's too late to jump in after April 2024. That's why it's kind of like a nuclear arms race to get it approved now. So the approval timeframe typically takes 240 days, which will take us to kind of January, February, March timeframe next year. I think they're going to get it fast tracked. I think they'll definitely have it before April, maybe Q3, Q4 this year. And
exactly, if they manage to do that, if they manage to get it Q3, Q4 this year, perhaps at that point, maybe we're up at 60K. Then maybe we get some mega bad news, so it crashed down to 30K again. They can load in at 30K support, and then off to the races early next year. That could be one scenario that I think definitely could play out. If they don't manage to get this in time, so they get it only in, say, I don't know, March, April next year, then maybe it's too late. Then perhaps they have to wait for the halving cycle to play out. And then it's like an expected crash. So maybe the crash happens, and then they load in for the next run up. So I think we should definitely monitor this and think like a contrarian. They're not going to play nice. They don't want to buy the top. They want to buy the bottom.
Yeah.
And
So I always tell people to have their sniper rifles ready, because, you can dump the Bitcoin market on a Sunday morning by just selling 8,000 fast, 8,000 Bitcoin on a certain exchange. There's not many of them out there. You can tank the price very quickly, like Bitstamp. And I think there'll be those games. So this is the time when we need to be ready and pick up some cheap Bitcoin. I wish it was back at 25K again myself, but hey, that's where we are right now. Thank you both so much for being here. Remember, DCA is on Ivan's channel next Monday, same time.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
So that's 4:30 Central European time, 7:30 a.m. Pacific. You guys make me get out of bed really early, but I'm up all night anyway, so it doesn't matter. So thank you both for being here. Have a great week.
Thanks, guys.
Everybody in the chat.
Bye-bye.
everyone.
See you all later. Bye.
See you.
Bye.